Hello everyone. We are going to learn another lesson in our Guru Gedar Rupahini program. Actually, this is a continuation of my lesson on the Nightingale and the Red Rose, and I think you can remember the place we stopped the lesson, but anyway, to recapitulate, I will just have a look on the first slide. The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde, and I want you to pay your attention to the following points: who plays the most important role, why, and what moral lessons are taught in the story. And can you remember the place we stopped? Of course, the bird was asking for a way to find a red rose. Right, we will start. There is a way, but it is so terrible that I dare not tell it to you. Tell it to me, I am not afraid. You must build it out of music by moonlight and stain with it your own heart's blood. Now, when you look at these lines, can you identify who told it to whom? That is one of your context questions. There is a way, but it is so terrible that I dare not tell it to you. So, the brave answer, tell it to me, I am not afraid. That is what Nightingale told to the rose plant, right. So, the rose plant declared that there is a way, but it is so terrible that I dare not tell it to you. Then what is that? You must build it out of music by moonlight and stain with it your own heart's blood. So, that is a tedious or painful thing, because now the bird has to sing the song, at the same time it has to give the rose plant its own blood. So, think of how she is going to do it. Let us see. You must sing to me with your breast against a thorn. All night long you must sing to me, and then the thorn must pierce your heart and your lifeblood must flow into my veins and become mine. That is the challenge. So, the bird told that, tell me, I am not afraid. So, after that the rose tree just uttered these things. Now, throughout the story you understand, children, that the writer has personified all these non-living things. The tree is speaking, all these other animals are also speaking, right. So, can you remember what this rose plant told to the nightingale? My veins are chilled, buds are nipped, branches broken. Why? The winter has done all these destructions, right. So, the veins are chilled, dry and cold, buds nipped and branches broken. So, kind of unhappy things to the plant, and as a result of that the rose plant can't give any roses. So, this is the way that rose plant can give a red rose to this bird. So, do you think that bird is ready to do this sacrifice, pressing her heart to a thorn and then let the blood come out and goes it to the plant, right. The bird is doing it, children, because she thought that the boy is a true lover, and therefore, she determined to find a red rose to soothe or bring a kind of comfort to the boy's heart, right. Then what are the techniques that the writer has used? We get powerful visual images when we think of that, right. So, a bird piercing its heart, pressing its breast to a thorn, and then after that we hear the auditory images, the beautiful song right at the beginning the bird sings. Then after that, how we are going to hear that as a painful lamentation like, right. So, then at the same time I just told you that there is personification, right. The utterances between the rose plant and the bird, as if they have got life. The plant and the birds both are speaking like humans. That is why we call it, it is personification, right. So, at the same time the particular word like vein, because veins are there in human body, right. So, of course, you know for science you learn how a tree grows and how that water and food is supplied for its growth, right. So, here the rose tree says that the veins are chilled and therefore, the blood of the bird should cheer them up, right. So, features characteristics of the bird we can learn through her utterance, right. So, we know that she is a helpful one. She understood the feelings of the bird other than the requirement of the rose plant or the rose tree as well. And she is ready to do that selfless sacrifice, right. So, piercing her heart and then after that letting blood come out to make a beautiful rose plant. So, the things that we are going to learn here in this particular scene show us that the bird is sacrificial and she is bold and brave. So, they are, when you hear these words bold and brave, we know that there is a kind of sacrifice, right. At the same time very courageous, otherwise we can't do it, courageous, sacrifice, sacrificial, and she is selfless. So, she is not thinking of herself, she does not want anything in return, right. So, she is selfless. At the same time she is kind hearted towards who or towards what or towards whom? Of course, the boy, the main concern is the boy and his love, right. So, she is kind hearted and at the same time she is determined. That is why she told that there are a way that I can get a rose plant, only one rose I need. So, her determination, and then after that she is going to do what the rose plant is needed, right. Death is a great price to pay for a red rose. So, if you are sacrificing your life just to get a red rose, it is of course great, children. You understand that even life of a bird is valuable and she is ready to sacrifice or give her life and become dead just because she wanted to find a red rose for this boy. So, death is a great price to pay for a red rose. So, value of the sacrifice is mentioned or shown here, right. So, she is ready to do that sacrifice and she is measuring the value of her sacrifice. Life is very dear to all. So, even for a bird, even for any other insect, right. So, even a tiny creature, they small or big, life is dear to all in the way that they spend the life, right. So, then after that bird is going to give a very beautiful descriptive picture of the place that she is living, of course, right. So, she is going to tell us her life or its life in the woods. Pleasant to sit in the green woods, to watch the sun in his chariot of gold. Look at that line, children, to watch the sun in his chariot of gold. When you hear the word gold, you know that shining, glowing effect of gold color. At the same time, the bird in its lines says that, oh, compared sun to a masculine gender and says his chariot of gold, right. So, personified again as a man or masculinity is there, his chariot. When you read the next line, you understand how the writer has personified the moon, right. Moon in her chariot of pearl. So, moon of course coming in a chariot of pearl. Now, see that softness or smooth, at the same time beauty is there. So, moon is of course beautiful, though it gets the light from the sun. Sun is of course very hot and heaty, right. So, then moon in her chariot. So, the personification is there with a masculine gender, her chariot. Then sweet scent of hawthorn, beauty of the bluebells, heather that grows in the hill. Beauty of blue of the bluebells, heather that grows in the hill. So, I have shown you the pictures of these three types of flowers because they are not very much familiar to you all, because they are not growing in Sri Lanka, of course. So, hawthorn is the first picture. Now, you can see that bluebells, of course, with the color, it is bluebells, and then heather is a flower that grows in moors like hills, right. So, there you can see how beautiful these things are and what beauty is there in the surroundings or atmosphere where this beautiful picture that she has created to show the woods she lives in, right. Then, so she has to leave everything that she is fond of. That is why she says life is dear to all, and this is the background or the environment that she lives, think of the beauty of it, right? Other than that, what is she going to miss, right? We will see. Yet, love is better than life. So, she is going to do a very great sacrifice, children. She thinks that love is better than life. So, her life is compared to the love that boy has in his mind, and she says that her life is nothing when she compares the love of the boy in his heart. Then she says, and what is the heart of a bird compared to the heart of a man? There are maybe that she is comparing the size of it, but I think more than that, she is going to say that she can make with her little deed a man or the boy happy forever in his lifetime. That might be the idea that the bird has. We do not know exactly, but we can just have those interpretations, right? And what is the heart of a bird compared to the heart of a man? These are some important quotations in the story. So, that is why I have taken and going to discuss with you all. So, remember these lines, and I hope you can very easily grasp all these things when you read like this, right. So, then we understand the positive values in her, right. So, many of the humans may not have. So, when you are going to do kind of help, going to do kind of sacrifice, you are going to measure it, okay. So, then through that measure that she is going to have, she thinks that heart of a bird is nothing when compared to that of a man. So, she has some positive values of what she is going to do, and it shows her goodness and healing the pain. Whose pain? The boy's pain, right. So, she is ready to heal the pain of the boy, soothing the discomfort of the boy. Now, the bird understood that the boy is very much uneasy, restless, but he is not taking an effort. That is a different story. But remember, children, bird understood the discomfort of the boy. So, that is why she is going to bring a kind of soothing effect to that painful mind. Clear to you? Got the idea? Right. So, when we read all these things, we understand that her life is second to another. So, that is how she thinks of her sacrifice. Is it something that you and I can do easily? In the society, how many of us as humans are ready to help another person in their trouble, right? Needn't sacrifice our life, but even kind of small help to bring a kind of soothing effect to another person. Now, think of this bird and why the writer has used her character to give us some positive ideas, positive values, right? Okay, children. Now, I hope you can remember this. Love is better than life, and what is the heart of a bird compared to the heart of a man? Fine. Let us move on to the next slide, because we have to discuss a lot. This is a fairly long story, right. I hope up to now you understood everything, right. At the same time, children, there is a paragraph repetition actually to describe the flight of the bird, how she flies, right. So, she spreads her brown wings, and there are some other long lines, and sail through the grove. So, this is the second time we find it. First time when she was going to meet the rose plants. Now, again after meeting the rose tree, she knows the way that she can help the boy, and then after that she comes back and speaks to the boy, right. So, these are the lines, or these are the words that the nightingale or this little bird tells to the boy. All that I ask of you in return is that you will be a true lover. For love is wiser than philosophy. This bird knows that this boy is a student of philosophy. I am going to talk about that little later. So, knowing the subject area or the subjects that he learns, he says, love is wiser than what you learned. Though she is wise, mightier, and there are some other lines, and then power, right. So, though she is wise, mightier than power. Then the bird is going to teach or going to remind this boy a good lesson. she presents sincere and pure love in contrast to conditional love seen in the selfish, materialistic humans who have grown so apart from nature, right. So, she says that you should be a true lover, you should understand this, I am going to sacrifice, I am going to do a kind of pure love I am going to talk about, right. So, what good has brought to him by learning philosophy? That is a question that we have in our mind, because through this particular word philosophy, towards the end of the story we understand there is humor here and satire here in the story. Why? Because this boy is a student of philosophy. According to the story, we are going to get some ideas about what kind of lesson or what kind of use or what kind of goodness has brought for this boy because he learns philosophy. Let us see. The boy could not understand what the Nightingale was saying. Now, Nightingale was saying that you must be a true lover, right. Saying to him, for he only knew the things that are written down in books. The boy could not understand what the Nightingale was saying to him, for he only knew the things that are written in books. Children, pay your attention to the words that I have highlighted there. The boy could not understand. You have to remember that. What couldn't he understand? What the Nightingale was saying. What did he know? He only knew things that are written in books. Books symbolizes knowledge, and he is a student. He has lot of knowledge gained from books, but we understand that this boy is not practical. Some of the students in our society also the same. They learn all the theories, they learn all these what is there in the books, but when it comes to practicality, they do not know to use those things, but they know how to write answers and score marks. So, something like that. This boy also learns a lot, but when it comes to practicality, when he has to use it in his real life, he does not understand, right. So, his knowledge is limited, not practical, and do not understand things away from what he learn in books. Philosophy has of course 3 areas. I think you must know a bit about philosophy. It is a subject, and there are of course 3 divisions in that basically, but I am not going to teach you any of those things. But through those 3, they are going to learn about love of wisdom, and people attempt to understand basic truths about themselves. And when they learn philosophy, most important thing is they attempt to understand the basic truths about themselves, the world in which they live, and their relationship to the world and each other. So, actually knowing all these things, you just think of whether this boy has taken any of these things seriously into his mind, or he is just telling things just because he learns, right. Metaphysics or epistemology or ethics are the 3 areas, right. The nature of reality, concerned with what we know about the world, and what we ought to do, what it would be the best to do is learned under ethics. So, I think it is something important for us, right. Concern about the nature or the reality, concerned with what we know about the world is also useful, but as students, here the most important lesson we can learn is what we ought to do, what it would be the best to do, what they learned under ethics. These are the 3 areas: metaphysics, epistemology and ethics, right, in philosophy. So, take seriously the last one, ethics, and it tells us what we ought to do, what it would be the best to do. So, the boy is doing it. So, when the boy was there and when the bird was speaking, the oak tree, again another important character in the story, because oak tree is important in many ways for the bird. Let us read. Let us read and see, right. Oak tree heard what the bird said. Oak tree is very fond of the bird. There are reasons for that, right. They are friends, oak tree and the bird, the nightingale. The nightingale had its nests in his branches. Now again see how the writer has given it, in his branches, not given as in its branches, again personified. You know that tree also speaks. So again masculine gender his, and the nightingale had its nests in his branches. Then after that, sing me one last song, that was a request, because the tree heard what the bird was saying to the boy, that he is going to sacrifice his life to get a red rose, and he found a rose tree, and the challenge of the bird is to keep her breast against the thorn of the rose tree and let the blood color the rose. So the bird told these things to the boy, and the boy of course could not understand what the bird said. That is what I was telling you in my previous slide. And then after that, as the oak tree heard all what the bird said, the tree knew that it was their last meeting. No more the oak tree or the green lizard or the daisy or the butterfly can see this nightingale, beautiful creature. Why? It is going to sacrifice her life to get a red rose for the boy. Sing me one last song. When you read these lines, actually we really feel sorry, isn't it, children, right? So sing me one last song to indicate that it is their last meeting, that the tree loves to hear the note or the beautiful tune of this bird's song. I shall feel very lonely when you are gone. So last meeting, right? I shall feel very lonely when you are gone. Sang to the oak tree. Then after that, the little bird sang to the oak tree, and voice was like water bubbling in a silver jar. So you get a again very powerful visual imagery and at the same time sound imagery, children. Voice was like water. You see that like is there, and it is a simile. And the sound of the water bubbling in a silver jar when you are boiling it, and it was so soft and smooth and soothing, right? It was like water bubbling in a silver jar. The writer has used a simile there to compare the voice of the bird's last song, or the sound of the song, and the sound of the water bubbling in a silver jar. We get very powerful visual imagery and auditory imagery. Actually, this story is rich with all these imageries, right? So the writer is very good at using his language. It is very simple, but still there are a lot of similes. Can you remember how the color of the yellow rose was given, white rose was given, right, when the nightingale was meeting these rose trees, right? Then let us move on to the next slide and see what the boy wrote in his notebook. So I have taken some, I have skipped some lines, I can't take each and every line. So after boy listened to what the boy said, what did this bird say now? She told that, she promised the boy, don't worry, I am going to give you a red rose, I am going to get you a red rose. I am going to do this, right? I am going to sing my sweetest song to a rose tree and let my blood come out and make the color of the red rose. So after listening to this, the boy took a pen and his notebook and started writing these things. Now these are very important ideas that were there in the boy's mind, because it shows so many things to note down what type of a boy or the character is this student, right? She has form, that cannot be denied to her, but has she got feeling? I am afraid not. Now the bird's promise you remember, right? So after that, she has form, of course, that cannot be denied to her, but has she got feeling to help me really? I don't think so. She is like most artists, she is all style without any sincerity. Think of that word, children, without any sincerity. If the boy knows how much she is going to do for this boy, the sacrifice and the painful sacrifice it would be, the It shows that the boy does not have any kind of feeling, even if it is the boy is talking about the feelings of the bird, right. So, when the bird says that she is going to pierce her heart, pressing it harder to a thorn of a rose tree, the boy should understand the pain, but he is not, right. That shows he is not sensitive enough to understand anything. Even he does not understand that this bird is sincere, right. She would not sacrifice her life for others. The boy thinks that the bird won't do such a sacrifice. The boy thinks that the bird is just a selfish creature. She thinks merely of music. Concern is only for music. That is the idea of the boy, but we know as readers this is quite wrong. His ideas are wrong, right. So, because we know the real feelings of the bird, we can understand that this boy is insensitive and he does not have any idea about the bird's real nature. What type of a friend is this bird? The boy has not understood that, right. So, she thinks merely of music, and there is a continuation of that line. Everybody knows that the arts are selfish. So, that is what he has learned from books. He has not got any practical experience, it is quite clear, right. So, the boy thinks that everybody knows that the arts are selfish, artists are selfish. The bird is also singing songs. She is concerned about her music only. That is the wrong impression that this boy has about this lovely little nightingale, right. What a pity is that they do not mean anything or do any practical good. This is how the boy thinks. Artists are not doing any practical good. It is really ironical, children. Here irony is there in the story, right. Actually, the bird is not so, we know it very clearly as readers, because we could understand and we could hear the words of the bird, and this boy also heard the words of the bird, but he is insensitive. He is not sensible enough to grasp any of these things. It is ironical. At the same time, we understand that he does not trust or he does not understand about this friendship or the nightingale's sacrifice. Just look at things from what he has learnt. He has some preconceived ideas. This is how these people behave, right. So, these are the preconceived ideas he has, and he is going to look at everything with that mind. He is not going to analyze or think of, oh, is that so? Will that be true? Like, he is not going to take it as some kind of positive thing, right. So, the boy thinks that what the bird said are merely having the concern about the bird's song, nothing else. Does not believe the words of the birds, does not believe the words of the bird, right. Nightingale told him, but he is not going to believe the bird. It is very ironical, very pathetic. At the same time, really we feel angry as well about this boy, isn't it? What a fool is this? Why can't he understand this, right? So, we feel sorry really for his ignorance, not angry at all. Fine. That night in the moonlight, the bird started to sing. Now, think of this fateful singing, right? So, after doing all these things, meeting the oak tree, singing its last song to the oak tree on its request, and after meeting the boy and told him everything, and that is how the oak tree got to know the plan of the bird. And then after that, that night, fateful night. Why is it a fateful night? Fateful night for the bird, because it is going to live only for few short hours or few minutes, right. After that, it is going to end up its life. At the same time, the boy also will get a red rose, but that is not something that the bird really expected to happen. That happens at the end of the story. So, that is a fateful night in that manner, right. That night in the moonlight, the bird started to sing. The birth of love in the heart of a boy and girl. So, first the bird started to sing about the birth of love in the heart of a boy and a girl. The love story of this girl, the professor's daughter, and the boy that he is going to help, right. So, when the song was going on like this, what happened? There blossomed a marvelous rose on topmost spray of that rose plant. Then petal following petal, song following a song. When the bird was singing, and at the end of each song, one by one, the petals of the rose plant started to bloom, right. So, you can see that the bird has sung its songs to make a bud, rose bud, to become a flower, a marvelous beautiful rose. But is it in red color? No, it is not red. The bird is going to give that red color to the flower with its own blood. First it was pale light color, feet of the morning, silver as the wings of the dawn, shadow of a rose in a mirror of silver, shadow of a rose in a waterfall. So, these are the visual imagery created by the writer to bring out the pale color of that rose flower that appeared on topmost of the rose tree. Got it, children? Feet of the morning. So, just like morning has got legs and walk personification, feet of the morning, silver as the wings of the dawn. You know the meaning of dawn, right? Sun touches the earth with its rays. The first few rays of the sun, we call it as dawn, right. So, here the writer says that dawn has got wings, comparing it to a bird like and silver color, and shadow of a rose in a mirror of silver, silver color mirror, and it shows a shadow of a rose. So, it is to give the white color or the pale color that the rose had, shadow of a rose in a water pool. Tree cried to the nightingale to press closer against the thorn. So, it was crying, right. So, to keep the heart or the press nightingale's heart closer to the thorn, right. Then what happened? Bitter, bitter was the pain, wilder and wilder grew her song, for she sang of love that is perfected by death, of the love that dies not in the tomb. Marvelous rose became crimson like the rose of the eastern sky. But I want you to pay attention to these lines again. Bitter, bitter was the pain. Why? Now, little by little, gradually, when the bird was pressing its heart closer to the thorn, what happens? It feels the pain, and then it can't sing the same beautiful song, and it comes out like a very painful shrill, right. Then wilder and wilder grew her song. It is not very beautiful, fantastic, very charming note that it had at the beginning, right. So, now it is going to die very soon, and we get that hint, right. For she sang of the love that is perfected by death. So, after this she is going to die, she is singing about it, and look at those words, of the love that dies not in the tomb. First of all, without looking at the meaning of it, just see the word order, love that dies not in the tomb. In our grammatically correct sentences, we are not writing a line like this, but the writers, the poets and the other authors have this license, poetic license we call it, right. So, they can change the word order to get the rhythm, and the meaning is there, right. Love that dies not in the tomb. Now, when it comes to the tomb, you know that after the death of a person, there is a tomb that the coffin is put, and then even in the tomb that love is not going to die. So, she thinks of a love perfected by death, of the love that dies not in the tomb. So, if you have heard the story of Taj Mahal, you can understand that love that dies not in the tomb. So, there also they talk about a love that dies not in the tomb, fine. Then marvelous rose became crimson like the rose of the eastern sky. Now, you can see the color changes, right. So, with the blood of the bird, the rose flower has got its color now, little by little. Fine. What happened to the bird at the end? Her voice grew fainter. Little wings began to beat. You know that, like in a shivering mood, right? So, it is her last few seconds like. Her voice grew fainter, little wings began to beat, film came over her eyes, she could not see like. Fainter and fainter grew her song, felt something choking in her throat. Anymore she can't sing her song like. When something gets stuck in our throat, we can't speak, right? So, we feel very difficult to breathe even. So, that feeling is there, felt something choke in her throat. So, we understand how pathetic the end of the life of this bird, but she was doing that tremendous sacrifice to bring happiness to another young hearts, 2 young hearts we will say, as she understood, especially to bring happiness to this boy who had fallen in love with that professor's daughter, right. So, can you imagine the pain, children, how much ordeal she had to have to make that rose, right. So, we feel very sorry for this bird at the end of the story, because we know what happened to the red rose at the end, right. So, we will see what will be the end of the red rose that she made with such a great sacrifice. Fine. She gave one last burst of music, right. So, that last music, how it was heard by the rest of the things in nature. The white moon heard it, and she forgot the dawn and lingered in the sky, right. So, the moon was shocked to hear that, and she forgot that the sun has brought another day, and she was still there in the sky, forgot to go back, right. So, there also children learn the writer has brought out the effect of personification, just as if moon has life and can hear everything, and she was so much in pain to hear all these things, and she also forgot in her shock that the dawn has come and she has to move back from the sky like, right. So, everything is very beautiful. At the same time, when you read these things, though it is a story, as I told you, about some teenage girl and a boy, here we get the children's story type, isn't it? All these things, objects in nature have been joined or fixed in the story and brought out a very beautiful, picturesque atmosphere in the story itself, right. So, story tell us many beautiful things. At the same time, we understand how nature has helped or has contributed or has reacted to all these events throughout the story. Then let us see the rest of it. Echo bow it to the purple cavern in the hills. So, I have shown you the picture of a cavern. They are the hills of deeper cave like, and they are purple in color. That is what they say, right. So, echo bow it to the purple. What is this it? The sound of last music, right, the burst of music of the bird, its last few sounds. Echo bow it to the purple cavern in the hills. You know that when a sound is knocked on the walls of a hill, it echoes, right. So, woke the sleeping shepherds from their dreams. See, the writer has taken shepherds as another imagery there, because they are some ordinary people who are very tired, and even these people who have fallen a deep sleep could wake up because of this painful voice of this bird, painful tone of this bird. So, it brings us enough of sound effect to the story, right. Woke the sleeping shepherd from their dreams. Fine. Then it floated through the reeds of river, and they carried its message to the sea. So, up to sea, the message has gone that the nightingale has made its last note, and it was so painful. It was felt by the reeds. Now, you know, in the river there is a type of a plant with a straw like thing in green color, and even those plants heard it, and they carried this message to the sea. So, combination of everything in nature, how fine it is. We get beautiful pictures in our mind when we read all these things, right? Look, look, the rose is finished now. That was told by, yes, the rose plant. Look, look, the rose is finished now. To whom it is addressing now? To this little nightingale. But what is the reaction of the nightingale? Nightingale made no answer, for she was lying dead in the long grass with the thorn in heart. So, it can't hear anything. It is to symbolize her sacrifice. So, then it is a very sorrowful, and that of course we can't hear it with happiness, isn't it, children? It brings a lot of sadness and misery to our minds, because we know how much this bird might have suffered or undergone pain, right? Why? What a wonderful piece of luck. Here is a red rose. Yes, I have never seen any rose like it in my whole life. It is so beautiful that I am sure it has a long Latin name. Do you think? These are the words of a person who is going to be surprised seeing a beautiful red rose. Where is this red rose now? In front of the boy's room window, right? That was the rose plant that made that promise to give a red rose, right? So, when the boy got up in the noon the following day, he could see this beautiful red rose in front of his window. So, these are the words that came out from his mouth. Why? What a wonderful piece of luck. So, suddenly he remembered about luck. What's that luck? To dance with that girl. Here's a red rose. His surprise, right? I have never seen any rose like it in my whole life. That is the first time he saw such a red rose, dark red, right? So, in the lines of the book, you have so many other words that the writer has used, similes that he has used to show the color of this red rose, right? It is so beautiful that I am sure it has a long Latin name. Very ironical, children. Now see, looking at that flower, he just thinks that there should be a long Latin name, right? So, nothing else he knows that this is a rose, red rose, how it came to my garden. He is not worried about the promise of the bird, but he is thinking of something else. I am sure that it has a long Latin name. It brings humor to us, right? Because this boy's knowledge about this red rose is so much low, right? At the same time, the writer is satirizing the boy's attitudes. It might have got a long Latin name, right? The writer is going to look at it, bringing a kind of humor, right? Satirizing the boy's attitude. It is so beautiful that I am sure it has a long Latin name. For us, of course, we know how it came. So, when he says these words, there is humor. At the same time, there is satire, because we know the attitude of the child. He knows what he learned from the books only. He is not practical. Fine. Anyway, children, now after seeing this rose flower, did this boy get any idea about how it came? Could he remember the promise that the bird made, that she is going to sing her song that night, previous night, now the following day morning, and it's noon, of course, and then oh, this bird has done what she promised. At least, was there any grateful thought or feeling for the bird? Could he notice, or at least did he see the dead body of the bird, because dead body of the bird was also next to the rose plant, and the bird's dead body is also right in front of his window. But he did not notice any of these things. He did not have any of these grateful feelings towards this bird. Why? Maybe because that he is only bothered about getting that red rose and making his dream a reality. At the same time, it shows his selfish attitudes, though the bird thought that this boy is a true lover and that this boy is really the person that she was singing for. Actually, we know that he is not the type that the nightingale was singing all throughout her life, according to what she said, right. So, boy is in a hurry to take this flower and to make his dream a reality. Other than that, he is not worried about anything and he is not grateful to this little creature who sacrificed its life to make this flower. He knows the story. Okay, children, what is revealed through the lines she uttered? I am afraid it will go with my dress. And besides, Chamberlain's Nivy has sent me some real jewels, and everybody knows that jewels cost far more than flowers. So, when you hear these words, after handing over this beautiful red rose, as she promised, I would dance with you if you bring me a red rose, right. So, there, once the red rose is given, she talks about something else, and she says that that color of the flower is not going to match with her dress. Can you understand how selfish she is? At the same time, she is a hypocrite. She is cheating this boy, isn't it? She wanted to have a red rose, and ultimately when the red rose is given, she says that does not go with her dress, that does not match with the color of the dress. So, is it fair to say like that? Knowing the color of the dress that she is going to wear, asking this boy to bring a red rose, don't you understand that she has cheated this boy, right? At the same time, her attitude towards some wealthy or rich things. Chamberlain's Nivy has sent me some real jewels. So, red rose is something to do with nature, that is natural flower. But she talks about some jewelry, and she says that gold is costly, and they know, right. All the others know that it is very valuable, the gold jewelry. Then what was the response of the boy? Well, upon my word, you are very ungrateful. That is what the boy could say. So, because she refused the red rose, telling all these things to hint us or to show her selfish attitude, hypocrisy, as well as her attitudes towards materialistic things. She values everything with money, right. So, money comes in first place. That is why she says jewels cost far more than flowers, right. So, then what happens? The boy says, well, upon my words, you are very ungrateful. Ungrateful? I tell you what, you are very rude, and after all, who are you? Only a student. So, this was the angry comment made by the girl, right. So, think of her. What type of a girl is she? So, then, why, I don't believe you have got even silver buckles to your shoes as the Chamberlain Nivy has. So, she makes a comparison between the wealth that this student has and her Chamberlain Nivy has. So, it shows what she values most is not the feelings or the emotions of love, but she values money, monetary things, gold and jewelry, and the other valuable things that she is going to find kind of happiness by looking at these, by owning these things, by possessing these things, right. So, there, think of her attitude towards love. She is greedy. Why? I don't believe you have got even silver buckles to your shoes. So, it is symbolic of wealth, right. If you have silver buckles at least, that is to say that you have money. Children, in the story, we find another instance to say that this boy is poor. So, just after listening to all these words of the bird and noting down what he felt about this bird, he lies on the pallet bed. So, pallet bed, you look for that line in the book. You must do something after listening to this story, right. So, I request you to go through the story or read the story if you have not done it so far. Think of these, you can just remember these lines and highlight them and find the particular words I told you to show that another instance or another example to show that this boy is poor, right. Pallet bed, that means you can, it is a kind of like foldable, and in hospitals and then when the patients are there, that silver color like pallet bed is there. So, it shows that he does not have a very comfortable bed to sleep. That shows that the boy is not in the same social class as like the girl. So, can you remember in the first part of the story when we were discussing, I told you that the boy's dream that whether this girl will not care for him and whether all the other rich people will be with her and she will go to them and dance ignoring this boy. I told you at that time also why this boy thinks like that. So, we understand from the beginning that this girl has that type of attitude in her mind. At the same time, I ask you that question, why this boy was not trying to buy a rose in the market. Now do you understand? He is not that rich. Sometimes there may not be the flowers in the market during this season, but to get to know that idea, he did not take any effort. But anyway, just because he is not very rich, he might have not tried to buy a red rose in the market. I gave you that question why, so I think you found the answer. Then after that, think of her angry comment, right. So, then after that she says, why I do not believe you have got even silver buckles to your shoes as the Chamberlain Eve has. And then what she did? She got up from her chair and went into the house. That was the last meeting. She wanted to make it short and cut short, and she went inside. So, the boy can't talk anymore. Then what happened to the boy, and let us see what happened to the red rose. What a silly thing love is. It is not half as useful as logic, for it does not prove anything, and always telling one of things that are not going to happen and making one believe things that are not true. That was the lesson the boy learned from this incident. So, just because the girl refused the red rose, she thought that love is something silly, and it is not useful as logic that he learns. Actually, the logic that he has learned so far has given him anything, children? We understand no, right? I told you the things that he learns, for it does not prove anything, and always telling one things that are not going to happen and making one believe things that are not true. With the experience he has, he thinks it that way, but it is not common for all the people all over the world, right? This is just one incident, but the writer is talking about this to bring out some good moral lessons for us, right? Remember that. That is why he has made this conflict in the story. To make this story or any story interesting, there should be a kind of clash or kind of conflict, right? So, then we can have different solutions or answers for that, and we can think of it, and the story becomes very interesting. If it does not have any clash or fight or kind of conflict, it just flows down, not interesting, right. And it is quite unpractical, and in this age to be practical is everything. So, let me read it again if I repeat, and it is quite unpractical, and as in this age to be practical is everything. So, again there is irony in that, at the same time humor, as well as the writer is satirizing, because we know that the boy was not practical. If he knew that girl is so rich, why did he fall in love with such a rich girl? Was he practical, right? He could have thought twice, and when she gave the challenge to bring a red rose, she could have understood, right? Then I shall go back to philosophy and study metaphysics. He returned to his room and pulled out a great dusty book and began to read. Again the book, dusty book, that means nobody has opened it for ages, right? Nobody has used it. What happened to the red rose? That is the most important thing. Such an innocent Nightingale. She was very good in her attitudes. She wanted to help this boy truly, and she made such a sacrifice. But what happened to that red rose at the end? Because girl refused the red rose, what the boy did was to throw it into the street, and it fell into the gutter, and cartwheel went over it, crushing the red rose. So one whole night the bird was singing and making a tremendous sacrifice, but in a second that flower destroyed. It also teaches us so many lessons, right? Try to think of it. I give you that task. Then let me go through the themes. Love in many aspects, adolescent romantic love, right, that is in the boy's mind. Pure selfless love of the little nightingale is present there, and insincere fickleness in the girl due to her greed towards materialistic things and her materialistic attitude to love. So, love is discussed in different ways. Then Oscar Wilde reflected on Victorian society, how he wrote about all these things and the life of Oscar Wilde. So, there you understood that he was in Victorian period, right. So, he wrote this to Victorian society, but children, the message that it gives, materialism and commercialization have made the society more selfish in our modern society. Think of this, is it true? Materialism and commercialization have made the society more selfish. Do you agree? In our modern society, he wrote it for the Victorian society, but still it is true, universal, and can take it at any time, right. Happiness at its difference in relation to different people, right. Student, logic is happiness. For the girl, things, materialistic values like jewelry and all the stuff. Nightingale, love, she does not expect anything in return. So, they talk about all these things. At the same time, in the story, we understand the vanity, selfishness in the girl, foolishness of the boy, and hypocrisy in the girl again, right. So, at last, techniques. Little bird's role is more like a fairy, and this is a story that tells us the adult's object of love and human behavior. So, there is irony, satire, humor, as I told you, right children. These are the techniques, and other than this, we know that the writer has used simple language, and this is in a short story form, and all these also come under techniques, right. So, I think just because this is a long story, I had to take 2 sessions to explain this, and I hope you have understood everything clearly. And let me wind up at this, and until we meet again, let me say goodbye to you all. Stay safe and healthy.